Hey, welcome to What You Doin' with Brandon Horwin.
And Sophie Williams. And today's special guest
That's it.
is
Anyway, hi everybody. I'm Donna McKechnie, actor, dancer, singer, writer, director, choreographer. What else?
The list goes on.
A cat mother. Tony received, not one. I sound like a school marm. I'm sorry, but
That's okay. Tell
I'm
us.
trying to, with the new age, change the concept of what we do in our work. Because that's a commercial thing and everybody is honored by that kind of an award, any award, when it comes from your peers. But I don't know, I'm just trying to, when I teach also, I like to impress that, that we don't compete with each other. There's always competition in the world, but if you're serious about having a long career, which you are able to do if you keep working and studying, it takes too much out of one to start competing. It's too hard because the contours of everyone's career is so different. Anyway, that's a long-winded way of saying of saying, received instead of won. If you think of it that way, little thoughts like that, though, in changing the way you use words can really affect the way you think.
Yeah.
And project. That's it.
Well, welcome, Donna. Thank you
Thanks.
so much for joining us, and we're thrilled to talk with you today.
Same here. Same here.
So can you tell us a little bit about your journey to theater, how you got your start and sort of where you followed your road to, many of the different opportunities that came after?
Well, okay, I'll start with a really tiny, as I remember it. The story that I tell sometimes when asked this question was a story that went into a show called A Chorus Line, which I was one of the original members. And when I would hear music, anytime I heard music on the radio, because I was born in I would get up and start dancing. Anything, and this is kind of common. It's not that unusual. My mother saw me dancing and sent me to a local ballet teacher, and I started dancing. And she thought I was trying to be a ballerina with my arms up like this, but I was really in a fantasy of seeing a Native American chief, an Indian chief. And I don't know where I got this image, but it was very wonderful to dance around. So she thought I was trying to imitate a ballerina. Where I would see that either, I wouldn't know. But so there I was. She took me to see the Red Shoes when I was 7, and that really made an impression. Honestly, the first Broadway show I saw, I was in it. It was How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. I had been a ballet girl growing up in Detroit, Michigan, or the suburbs of Detroit in Royal Oak. And lucky for me, there were a couple of really good dance teachers. So I was in the world of ballet and classical music. And then the story goes on. I got my first, I auditioned for 4 musicals at the Cass Theater in Detroit. And I was the only local girl that got in because they needed one more dancer. It was one of those great, opportunities. I loved it so much because it was, I was exposed to musical theater. I think we did King and I with Betty White. You know Betty White? She was like 40 years old then, and wonderful singer. We did Bittersweet with Jeanette MacDonald, who was in the, Noel Coward score. She was at the end of her career, but she was quite lovely in that beautiful high soprano. I'm trying to think, Guys and Dolls and Peggy Cass. You wouldn't know her perhaps, but you might because you're a student of theater and you love it, right? Musical theater. Peggy Cass was a great actress, comedian, and she did Bells Are Ringing. And that was it. I went back to high school, my senior year, and I got a call from the director saying, I'm doing a dance tour in this little company. Do you think your parents would let you go? So I asked them and they said no. And then I asked them again and they said no. So I ran away from home to join this group. This was all, kind of a cautionary tale that I put in my book. But I thought in my teenage angst that this was the only chance I ever would have. It was so dramatic in my mind and so life and death. And so I ran away. I knew one person from the cast theater. And then, of course, she called my dad. And then he flew to New York, brought me back. And then all of a sudden, I'm back in rehearsals in New York again. And I don't know why we never talked about it, which is kind of typical of the Midwest, if in the 50s anyway. Maybe not so much now. And anyway, I think my dance teacher said, let her go and she'll find that it's too tough. So, and then she'll come back home. Well, I met this challenge. It kind of fueled my desire to stay there and work. And so that was my first professional job in New York on this tour. Before civil rights was wild. We toured the South for 5 or 6 weeks in a U-Haul truck with our costumes and our sets. And there were 7 members driving in a station wagon. Wow. So that was the beginning. Coming back, as I mentioned before, I did an industrial. They don't do them anymore, but these were like very coveted jobs for a singer dancer. They would put like $2 million in this production. That's nothing now, right? But in those days, you'd do an Oldsmobile show and it would go on tour. They'd go to the big cities. They'd go to LA. So I got one that Cy Feuer and Ernie Martin, the producers who had produced Guys and Dolls and all these big Broadway hits, they were doing industrials. So I got the job, and it was my first time to LA. It was kind of wonderful. And but I was young. I was still a teenager, and it was kind of scary, and I just wouldn't deal with that, as long as I was working. And then I got back in Cy Feuer. That's when he invited me into the chorus of How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. Of course, I thought that's how you got a Broadway show. They would just invite you in, of course. I learned, that wasn't the case. But I'll wrap that section up by just saying, from a little ballet girl who just couldn't see any other future, I was in rehearsals in this Broadway show with all of these fantastic people, all telling a story with their dialogue, with music, with song, with dance. And they were so incredible. And I kind of was like a little sponge, standing there, very intimidated. But, I thought to myself, if I learn how to sing and act, then I might have a chance to stay doing this for longer than a dancer's life. I mean, it was a really smart thought for someone like me who was all over the place that age. And that was my determination. And I took I think I made $160 a week. And because dance class was like $1.50. So I took that money and I started and spent it all every week in acting class and dance and voice lessons. And yeah. And luckily that show ran for 2 years. I mean, I was in it for 2 years, and then I left to do, and then, I could keep talking forever because, but you have to stop me, you have to go like this. So that was the beginning of me deciding, I guess, that I really loved musical theater, and I really saw it as an art form. I saw it as something that, because I started working with the greatest people. It may not, it was won a Pulitzer Prize, right? And it was just a great experience, and I was still growing up. So I felt a little protected, to have a job. Now, when you don't have a job, and you have to pay the rent. That's a scary place.
Yeah. That kind of leads me into my next question, which so your early career kind of started off with like a myriad of this great ensemble work in New York and touring, like West Side Story, How to Succeed in Business, like you said.
Oh,
Uh,
right.
a Funny Thing Happened, Call Me Madam, and Promises, Promises, just kind of name a few. So how did these, ensemble tracks and awesome dance roles really set you up for a long future in on the stage?
Well, you never know. You have no
Yeah.
idea. But one thing is, I think all the networking you do when you meet friends in work and you're professional, and then you find people that you can bond with. I mean, as friends, you become the family. Life is going to, even if you're living in the same city, you separate, you do it, it's another job, and maybe your relationship strains because of it, or you lose that friend. But it just comes in so many different ways. I think a lot of luck too. I That was a time, and I don't think it's the same now. I hope it isn't. When everybody was going, there was that big competition. It's like, I've got to make this kind of I have to do my first lead before I'm 21. I have to be the ingenue before I'm 20. I mean, Priscilla Lopez, I think, and her role in A Chorus Line, I think she references that, as Deanna.
Yeah.
And it was just the pressure that you felt like you had, put on yourself. But when I left How to Succeed to do A Funny Thing, that was my first singing audition. And I thought, oh, good, I'm out of the chorus, because then we didn't have, it wasn't respected in the same way. Now we respect it, and we call it ensemble, right? But then it was the chorus boys, the chorus girls, the singer girls, the singer boys. And that's one of the reasons Michael Bennett wanted to make this Valentine for dancers, because we were treated like the kids, paid the least. Anyway, I digress. So A Funny Thing was my first national tour as in a role. And I came back, and luckily again, and I don't say it's just luck, because I had really good training as a dancer, and I had a real passion. Again, that survival, that need to not to have to go ask my parents for help. It made me kind of determined. I was lucky to get, from my West Side Story days, the connections that you make, the friendships, and the respect that you earn by just doing your work. I got auditioned for David Winter's for Hullabaloo, which was a TV variety show. And that's when I first met Michael Bennett. And I'm bringing that up because when Michael was a dancer on that show, he already had followers. All the dancers in New York that had ever worked with him or knew of him kind of were already, they could see him. They could see his dreams, because he was so serious about what he wanted to do. And he already had a little, trail of dancers following him around. And I became one of them. And when he did Promises, was his first Broadway, hit, I guess, as a choreographer. That evolved. I got the job actually as a singer. I was not dancing in the show. And then, of course, they had to cut like 20 minutes out of town. And of course, the first parts that get cut are the smaller parts that aren't part of the main story. So Michael saved my job by saying he needed a dance number. And he knew I was a dancer because we danced on Hullabaloo. And so that saved my job. That was one of those moments. And it was great. Bob Avian was there every step of the way. And Harold Wheeler was his first time conducting. And he was like, Burt Bacharach loved him. So he was his mentor, and it was a lot of new, young energy, taking, and David Merrick, producer, Bob Moore, director. It was a great, great group. And Bjork Lee, I mean, all the dancers that Michael had been loyal to, before, uh, were in other shows, and Promises really started that.
Yeah, you really just set me up for my next question as well,
Okay.
which is, you've notably had like great working relationships with these like huge musical theater people like Michael Bennett and Sondheim and Fosse, and they tapped you then for a lot of their projects. So for our audience, can you kind of define the importance of maintaining these like great working and personal relationships within the business?
Well, it's all about the work,
Yeah.
I was a very shy girl. I mean, I still am. I'm still the same girl, but I have more confidence now, and I'm older and somewhat wiser, though I don't know. It's arguable. But I think and this is an important thing. It's all about the work. Any of these great talents and great successful people, the work was always the most important thing that fed them, that they love so much. It whether you think it's too much or not, I mean, it was the work that brought everyone together. It was the work that people respected. So if you have a good work ethic, and you have talent, and you contribute, one of the best things about working with Bob Fosse and Michael Bennett and all people like that were that they believed in musical theater in terms of a true collaboration. And if you're willing to, step up and you always follow their lead, but you earn their respect. I guess I'm saying the same thing over and over and over. So it's not about being Mr. or Miss Personality, and making, throwing parties for people. It's less that than it's more, but I mean, that's part of it, but it's less that and more about the work.
Yeah.
That's awesome, because speaking of the work, you went on to play Cassie in the original Broadway cast of the iconic, beloved A Chorus Line, and going on to receive a Tony Award for that
Thank you.
performance.
I
And
scolded you. I'm sorry.
I really like that. I like that transition, and I like that edit a lot. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
It's better, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
It definitely is.
You've obviously performed the iconic number Music and the Mirror, and both, you had
And I will be doing it again, not the whole number, July 3rd, which I'm terrified, excited. It's the first time I've performed my show in over a year.
Where is
anyway,
that
sorry to interrupt, but
where will you be performing that?
this is going to be in Huntington, Long Island, at the Harry Chapin Theater. It's an outdoor theater. July 3rd.
Wow.
Da, 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 da,
That is so
Play
exciting.
me the music. Yeah, I'll be there. I'll do my short version.
That's exciting.
But yeah, so Michael, that was a love. I said the love letter, the Valentine to dancers. That was a great. All of those, like Fosse, when I did Charity with Fosse later, each dancer was handpicked, so they were really the ensemble. There was no chorus. They were the, just everybody was fantastic. And Michael utilized everyone's abilities in different ways to contribute and improvise, and it was just a great experience that maybe won't ever happen again. I mean, in my life, for that kind of, it's a once in a lifetime experience. Although I've had other great, like Company was, I think my first, when my eyes just really opened, I went, oh my God, this is like groundbreaking. I'd never seen a musical that dealt in such a sophisticated way with adult relationships in New York City. and just such powerful, the significance, the fear of emotional intimacy, that kind of subject being brought up in a, musical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, see
And
how I go off? You're gonna like come back.
just going back to chorus line for just a second,
Yeah.
can you take us through, how you went about crafting such an iconic role, such an iconic number, and then, furthermore, your working relationship with Michael Bennett, throughout the show, and then your personal relationship with Michael Bennett as well on the
Yeah, well,
band.
that was a unique, we had 2 workshops. So just to be quick about it, not to, the first workshop was without Marvin Hamlish and Ed Kleban. And so the word has evolved. I think it all evolved. It all went through a process that is quite wonderful when you have that, when you're, when you're able to have the space and the time, which is all money. So now everything, you have to do your own work in your bedroom and, in rehearsal, so that, because you don't have the luxury of time, I don't think, like we did. No, we don't. I know you don't now. But in that way, Michael was able to have the luxury of that, trying everything, trying all the different ways. So there was no pressure. There was pressure, but it wasn't, he had to come up with it and just settle for something. He never settled. And I learned a lot about not being afraid to make the wrong decisions, just to go down that road, commit to it and do it. If it doesn't work, you'll know right away it's not right. But allow the possibilities, be able to have those possibilities. And I thought that was very wonderful that he could be, it's like when you go to acting class and they say you can't be afraid to make a fool of yourself. You have to allow yourself to feel foolish or you'll never grow, right? Because we start censoring and judging ourselves and criticizing ourselves, right? So that was a wonderful thing to be able to do, to see that and apply it. And so I'm saying too many ways, but that part was almost not in the show because it wasn't working. And probably if it was any other show, it would have been cut. But Michael had to solve the number of how to make it work for one person, because he had a production number in mind. And anyway, that's the story, that it didn't work. And then he was brave enough to, and also I begged him, I said, please do another number. And yeah, so he did this solo. That in itself, it's an acting scene. It's less a dance and more of an acting scene. And it's about a woman trying to reclaim herself and all the fear. It's like when you've been away, when you feel fractured, when you feel you're in so many different pieces, how do you find the confidence? With a dancer, it's, you look in the mirror, you see if you're still there. You over dance, or then you settle into and you find your feeling going back in your body. All of these things that he allowed me to personally explore. So every section musically builds and then pulls back and then goes into another discovery. So it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it goes into this discovery where she finally finds her confidence and her joy. I work with Cassie's all the time with the American Dance Machine, which is a great company, and they're coming up with a great show coming up this year. And the tendency is for the dancer who's playing Cassie to start at this fever pitch, because it's very passionate the way the song starts, and keep that one level. And it's all about the steps and great technique and throwing yourself around on the stage, and it's not that at all. So that's been a very exciting thing to impart that, to help a dancer find her own interpretation. That's what's great about working with the American Dance Machine anyway.
That's an amazing story. I can't even imagine a chorus line without that number.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, I agree with you. I mean, um, but there was one time when it wouldn't have been in there, um, by anybody else's standards, you know?
Yeah.
And
Wow.
Michael never gave up. And that was great. But that happened with a lot of different things in that show, a lot of different characters that were discovered. And when you're privy to seeing how creativity really works, it's like you don't always have the answer right away. It's not, even though his talent was very instinctive, you don't always, you just have to try things and get out of your own way. So enough said. I keep going on, you really do have to stop me.
That's okay. I mean, this is such a great conversation because I'm thinking of things as we're going through and listening to you. And one thing that just came to mind that I think is important for our audiences is, looking back from the conception of a chorus line, which you were involved in throughout the years and the trajectory that it's had internationally. I mean,
Oh, I
all over
know.
the world, almost every
We couldn't
band.
have known that, and we didn't. And yeah, go ahead.
How do you see that, how do you see that, what does this show represent for the people that are performing it, and what is it teaching audiences all over the world about the craft and the work that you do?
Well, it's about it's a humanism. It's about the human being. And the audiences over time when we were doing it, they had to tell us with their letters and everything how far reaching this metaphor was, because we thought it was a very insular subject. That was the concern, that it might be too insular. It was definitely a work of art, I thought. The first time I heard At the Ballet with Marvin Hamlish playing and Ed, singing, I thought that captures everything so perfectly. It's a work of art now. The music, it's all, but we didn't know how it would reach people. So the audiences had to tell us. And then, we got it. But to see generation after generation, it speaks the same language. And it's really about the individual, about your dreams, my character, Cassie, represented, like we all did, we all represented something for someone. I was the second chance character. And I can't tell you how touching it was and moving to receive letters from all kinds of people, not in theater, show business, about who were aged out of their job, and they saw the performance and they related to this character and went out and changed their lives or didn't kill themselves like they were planning to. Things are very dramatic like that. It touches people in ways that we can't ever know, but it keeps going on thanks to Bjork-Lee, who keeps, taking the show around the world, over and over again. And I don't even know how many countries it's played in, over 35, and about as many languages. And it was just about coming back with at the Shakespeare Festival again, just before everything shut down. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Does that answer? I mean, it's generation after generation. And does that make sense to you?
Absolutely,
It's
absolutely.
about, we're still dealing with the same dilemmas today.
yeah.
And I think it was groundbreaking in that it was the first musical, maybe not a play, but first musical where the subject of Sammy Williams' character, Paul, talked about his humiliation to be in front of his parents in in drag. And talking about that, I remember I would hear sobs from people. It had never been it's hard to imagine that, but it had never been, that subject matter had never been dealt with in a serious way before, the musical. That's just one thing. Um,
I mean, I
yeah.
think it's amazing to hear that people were writing to you about a connection that they're having to, a musical that's about people that put on shows and do musical theater, but they're finding connections within their own lives that
Oh,
intertwine with
and
these
now
people.
I still get letters
That's amazing.
from fans who are like 20 years old and still struggling with their identity. And but what the show does, it it inspires people to take a stronger, step forward. You're not alone. It's the show has so much to say, but I think that one of the things I loved when I played the character, when Zach and Cassie have their little confrontation, we call an act two. He goes, the whole dilemma for him was that he didn't want her to be there because he was unresolved about that relationship, and he still loved her. And he wanted her to get out of his way because it's always work, and he couldn't deal with his feelings. And he goes, "You're special." He finally blurts out, and then she has to, say back to him, "No, I'm not special. He's special. She's special. They're all special. And I'll be in this show if you'll let me, and I'll do my job." And I love when she said, "I want to do what I love as much as I can and as long as I can."
Mm.
And so those I think those elements are still much, in need for people to hear.
Yeah.
You have any feedback from how did the show speak to you?
For me, I like desperately wanted to be a dancer afterwards. That it didn't work out, but you know what? It definitely launched me into this profession. I saw it when I was, I think for the first time I saw it, I must have been like 13. So I was still, trying to like find my footing and
Right.
what I wanted to do. And I was spending a lot of time in like sports and stuff, and I would go from sport to sport to sport, and I didn't like any of them, and I was like, I don't like this. I don't like what I'm doing. And I went and saw like a community production of A Chorus Line, which looking back, it might have been okay, but to me when I
Right.
was 13, it was like the best thing in the world. I'm like, this is a great story. This is, oh my gosh, these people and the dancing and the music, and it's just so perfect. So I've gone on to see it a couple more times, and in the last, come out with a degree in musical theater. So yeah.
Great. Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Thank you. So I think A Chorus Line really kind of launched me into
Yeah.
knowing what I wanted to do.
To see how much people love it and the need they have for it, and it's a soulful experience. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. And what about you, Brandon?
Well, I hadn't seen it until about when did Sophie and I saw it together in DC at the
Uh,
Signature Theater. What was it, 2 years ago?
Oh yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I had known about, I just had never been presented an opportunity wherever I was in the world to go see it, and that was my time. And for me, it was a reminder of why I was studying what I was studying and doing what I was doing, and on a path for a reason, because each one of them are on such a journey of
Yes.
themselves and their career and their lives and their relationships and their understanding their place in the world. And for me, midway through college, it was it's not the easiest thing to always tell people you're going into theater in any facet. I mean, I'm
Oh
more
yeah.
behind the scenes, and still they say, "What? Wow,
They don't know what it is. They don't
yeah."
know what it is.
And so for me, it was just a deeper reflection, but more of a reminder and reassurance of the path I was on. And I also I paid attention to how it affected the audiences, something that fascinates me wherever I go, because you had people that were younger than us, people our age on par with us, and people older than us, and it still affected them in more
Mhm.
ways, than you can explain. So to me, that was special as well.
It's encouraging. It everyone has their dream, and it kind of says, don't give up on your dream.
Yeah.
It's all going to change. It's all going to, adjust to, it's not going to be exactly the way but keep pursuing it. I mean, in our business, I mean, I don't have to say this to students I work with if they've worked professionally for more than 5 years, but, there are more no's than yeses.
Yeah.
It's a business of rejection. That's hard to take every day. So you have to have something else going for you that you believe in besides yourself, the way, and then you have to always shift maybe how you get what you need to get, make that dream fulfilled. But we never give up on ourselves. We never give up on our dreams, and it's possible. And I guess shows like A Chorus Line, try to encourage people.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is a perfect way to put it. All right, so if we could jump back, you mentioned you brought up that you were in Company. That's one of our favorites as well.
Yeah.
So you were in the original cast of Company, and also were featured in the iconic documentary of filming the soundtrack. So can you take us through like the process of working on such a classic Stephen Sondheim Hal Prince collaboration?
Well, that, unlike, A Chorus Line's beginning, Stephen Sondheim had done all of his work. It was all done. Hal Prince they had done their pre-production. The designers, everybody. Michael was the only one that really hadn't, figured things out. But I was there to be the dance, to create a dance with him. Or him for me, really. And that had a disastrous beginning too. And again, I was here. This is the first time I thought, oh my, I'm out of this show, because in Boston it wasn't working. Anyway, there were all these different dynamics happen. That's when people took shows out of town when they could afford it and rework it. And all those audiences out of town in Boston and Philly were very important, as the critics were, to help the Broadway show kind of pull together before Broadway. Is a very exciting time. But all the work was done in rehearsal. And then things start shifting at the end of rehearsal. What I mean by all the work was done, it was all there. George Furth's plays all were one play. The music was there. But when you start putting actors in and staging, then you start seeing how things, well, we don't need that kind of doubles that effect. We don't need that. We have to shorten that. We have to elongate this. This number's in the wrong place. They found out that 2 numbers were in the wrong place in Boston. In terms of one other fun thing, I think is You Could Drive a Person Crazy is what a song that the Girlfriends sang, a la, the 40s, and the Andrews Sisters. And we were doing it, you could drive a person crazy, with full tilt voice, with all these moves. And it just wasn't working. It was so busy. And then there were one day, we didn't even know Sondheim was in the back of the theater. It was an empty theater. We were just going before a run through. And we were just up there marking it, like almost whispering, you could drive a person crazy, you could drive a person mad, do. And it's the wrong, it's flat. And we were just doing that with our voices together. And all of a sudden, Sondheim runs down the aisle. That's it. That's it. And we were like, what? What's it? He goes, that's the sound. And we said, we were just, doing it, we weren't even doing it full out. He goes, that's it. Whatever it is, mark it like that. He said, I heard every word. So that was an interesting, fun lesson. I think of that. I use that a lot when I'm having trouble with something if it's too wordy, and I go, no, we have to start connecting more, more support, less volume, and say the word. And that's what isn't that fun?
That's
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 amazing.
it. That's it. Yeah, that was a great group of people. They were all adults, which helps. They're
Mhm.
so smart. And Hal Prince was such a great leader, a great man, a great producer of the theater. One of those great people. I was very lucky, and we all loved him, as we do Sondheim, of course. And to see that show come around again and again, they don't always do. The dance finally worked in the show, but not the first time. And they don't, and it is kind of a dance from left field. So I think if it works, it's great in the show. It gives another element that's very passionate, but they don't always do it in the show.
Mm.
Because they want to create a new version.
Yeah.
Like I think the Broadway, this show isn't doing it. They have a whole nother take on the show, which is great.
Mhm.
All right,
Yeah,
that's it.
exactly. That was perfect. What a great story. So since your kind of performance debut around the early 60s, you've worked very consistently. Some of your most recent projects being Pajama Game at Arena Stage, which I actually did have the opportunity to see, and I
You
loved.
did.
Yeah,
Oh, great.
that was my freshman year of college, and I think that was the first show I saw in DC. So that was really
It's a
exciting for me.
great theater with Molly Smith and
Oh yeah,
great
she's
group.
she's an alum of our college, actually. Yeah,
Oh, fantastic.
yeah, we love Molly Smith.
Yeah.
But Pajama Game and Halftime at Paper Mill. So what skills do you think someone would need to acquire to really be a performer for life?
Um, uh, uh, what skills?
Yeah,
Well, discipline,
yeah.
you know, you're the instrument.
Hmm.
So I believe I'm a professional student. I believe I still, I have a voice lesson every week, or I vocalize on my own. But as you age, especially, everything changes. So you have to keep doing it. I mean, I used to, as a dancer, even, I used to, get up and dance and not warm up, and I was just there. As you age, you can't do that, or you're going to get injured, and then you won't be able to dance ever. Um, I think the discipline of just taking care of yourself, learning, and I think the dancers I work with and the actors are more educated about health, um, about how to take care of themselves. I hope, but it's that discipline. You are the instrument. You can't, you can't smoke. You can't do a lot of things that are toxic. Smoking, drinking, never thinking of tomorrow. No, tomorrow. Yeah. What else? I think and study. And there's another big, more important thing than any of that, which is what I work with a lot of students. That's rough in this business, because we talked about before about being critical, judgmental, how we censor ourselves. And we start directing ourselves before we have allowed ourselves to create enough. And so I talk about um, learning how to love yourself first.
Hmm.
This is an age-old human life experience, and we all know it in theory, but to really have it, to really love oneself and respect yourself, so that you are able to see with clarity somebody else or
Yeah.
the world, see it's all also, we have so many different perceptions, and I think that we have to be very clear and compassion is a big word. When you're young, you feel very omnipotent. You go, I can do this, I can do that, and you have all this great energy. As you get older, you really have to not be frightened, but really respect yourself. I'm saying the same thing over and over, but you get the gist, right? But it's love. And Cheetah Rivera, who's, been an icon to me forever, and she's my beacon, and I've worked with her, and she is someone who sets an example of go where the love is.
Mhm.
Don't go where it's toxic, or don't go. And Andre de Shields, if you remember his Tony acceptance speech, it was quite wonderful. I know you can see it on YouTube. Andre de Shields for Hadestown, right? He's saying about, I can't remember the exact words, but it was all about that. Go where the love is.
Yeah.
Because it's too hard.
Yeah.
And then work hard. Work hard.
Absolutely. Well, you just touched on my next question about Cheetah Rivera, because recently in 2015, you had the opportunity to be the standby in The Visit, which was
Yeah.
on Broadway. So did you get to go on for the role at all? And how was
No,
that?
that's
How
why I took the job, because I knew I would never go on.
was
That's true, but I it was my job to be ready, but I also wanted to be in the room where it happened with John Doyle, who is a director I really admire, and I love the moments in theater that he has given me and his other shows. And Cheetah and the development, and John Kander, was there every day. It was I just wanted to be there. And I almost went on for her once when she lost her voice because of Tony Week. You do the 8 shows a week, plus you do all these interviews, and her voice was going. And they said, get ready, just put your underwear on and your wig. And that means you're going to go on like the next act, maybe. And I said, no, it's not going to happen. But I got ready. I was prepared. I took myself to dinner and went over the lines and everything. And I would have gone on. I prayed that I wouldn't have to, because it was like the last show. But she did. She went on, and I counted on that. And she, you know what? She was fantastic. I think, she's one of my idols.
That's amazing. So just wrapping up here on a final note, you've shared some incredible stories and journeys with us through your career and through, these years. Is there any one particular story that we didn't get to at this moment in
Oh my
the
God, there's
conversation that
so many. I can't think of one in particular. No, I've just had the best time being able to travel. Before everything shut down, I was the show that I'm going to do July 3rd with Andrea McCardle. We do a show together. I was traveling all over the country and meeting people, and it was just, and I was singing a lot, and it was just wonderful. And I started, because when you get to be my age, definitely, up there, you go, I don't know if I can do 8 shows a week. What am I going to do? It's so hard, as Elaine Stritch used to say, it's the stairs, not the hours. And so I was very, very happy to keep, doing the flying to places and seeing friends and doing the shows. So there'll be more of that. As hard as it was, and for other dancers, young dancers, this layoff, this over a year, it was really hard on people. Besides the threat of illness and losing loved ones, which is just so emotionally devastating. It's wonderful to see everything kind of coming back, and people are being sensible about it, I feel. So, and you must be feeling that too with your classes and graduating. Are we all graduated?
Yeah.
Yes, we
Yeah.
just
Wow.
graduated together. Yeah,
Wow.
it's
Yeah,
an
things are good. Things are good. There's a bright future there for everyone.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And
My
this has been
pleasure.
such a great conversation. Is there anything that we need to wrap up, Sophie?
No, I don't think
I,
so.
I want to wish you really good luck. Good luck with everything.
Thank
Keep
Thank you.
keep singing and dancing. Vocalize every day.
you.
And is there anything we could promote on here for you? I know you said you're performing on July 3rd.
Yes, and I'll be in New York at the Green Room November 11th and 12th and 13th with a new show that I just put together. Yeah.
We have to
So
mark that in our calendar,
Yes,
perhaps.
yeah,
we want
November 11th, 12th in the Green Room in New York City. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
excellent. Well, this has been so great, Donna. Thank you
Oh, my
so much.
pleasure. Thanks for asking and good luck with everything.
Thank you,
Oh,
and
Thank you.
I'll see you on the street, as they say.
we will stay in touch for sure. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.